Hi everyone, welcome back to Project No Buy. Today's video might be a little bit of a deep one about the privilege of no buy and sustainability in general. So I watch a lot of other no buy related, conscious consumerism related content on YouTube. It may come as no surprise, since that is the path that I'm currently on. And sometimes I see comments in these other communities, on these other videos, about how doing a no-buy is a very privileged thing. And in some cases, people are saying that they don't like it. They don't like to see no-buys. They sometimes feel that they've been made to feel guilty about needing to buy certain things and behaving in essentially normal ways. And you know, these are comments on videos from creators that are very large, right? And they'll be attracting a much wider community. And so there's going to be some element of misinterpretation perhaps, or not quite being on the same page. You know, of course, most of the creators doing no buy are aware of the privileged nature of such a challenge of having everything we need already, having more than we could need already. And we're not really, I'm not trying to speak for other people here, but I know I am not trying to direct these videos at people who truly consume what they need and have to do so on a revolving, rotating basis, because that's the nature of their lives. Like, that's not the target audience, I guess. I don't necessarily have a target audience, right? But this is just my personal journey of navigating my consumer habits. And there has been research done, data points gathered, that overconsumption can happen at any level and any kind of economic standing, any background, and it just looks different for different people. And so I'm not sitting here saying that directly, but it's something that's experienced by people in various different situations. I'm not trying to sit here and accuse others of overconsuming directly, but nobody is necessarily immune to catching the bug of consuming more than they need. And I will also be the first to tell you that having enough stuff to be able to go for a year without buying anything new is not some kind of virtue or something that should be aspired to. But again, I think it's a symptom of a deeper problem. I talked about this in another video where buying things is a symptom that addresses none of the underlying issues that a person may be experiencing that they are acting on when they have the impulses to buy things and collect more stuff. But there was one part of a comment that I saw that really got me thinking and got me continually thinking. It was something to the effect of how it sometimes looks like being middle class, being comfortably middle class, is presented as an accomplishment that poorer people have somehow just failed at or fallen short of attaining. And that the middle class in general don't think about or care about people who are in poverty or who have failed at this kind of success or attaining this level of success and security. This got me thinking about all kinds of value judgments, I guess, that we have based on somebody's socioeconomic standing. And, you know, I was having some frankly kind of childish thoughts, I guess, or, you know, immature thinking about, you know, what does it even mean to be poor? Is it better to be middle class or rich or poor? And if you're poor or in poverty, you know, does that give you the right to complain about all these things? And then if you put yourself in the middle class or, you know, try to aspire to that kind of life, are you then automatically less moral because you are not in a position to feel bad about this kind of stuff anymore? Would I have more credibility, speaking personally, you know, would I have more credibility if I had stayed in the lower economic bracket? If, you know, in my personal situation, and again, I've shared these details multiple times in different contexts, but I am part of a family. I am not the main income earner. My own income is not that high, but I guess could be comfortably lower middle class if I were to operate on my own 2 feet. I think I am technically above the poverty line for a single person in my state. Not as somebody with multiple children, but if I were single and didn't have kids, I think I would probably be lower middle class in that regard. And as part of a family, we are squarely middle class and much more secure financially than we've ever been in the past. And even as this same family configuration, you know, my husband and I have been married for a while, and we have not always had the same jobs. We have not always had the same income levels. And so we have kind of moved through the ranks of the middle class, I guess. I have had times prior to being in this family where I've been on government assistance, working at a Panera, doing the bakery opening shift. And so it's, you know, arguably that could be a temporary period of living in the more poor class. I don't want to say living in poverty because it didn't necessarily feel like that. And again, it might be bizarre to say because, I mean, it's basically an admission of my own privilege, my constant state of privilege, relatively speaking, over the course of my entire life. And there are aspects of it that I will never understand. And it's not due to any fault nor accomplishment nor feature, fault nor feature of my own, perhaps, that I have been able to live this life. And so this is where, the thinking starts flowing and the ideas start grappling with each other about how it's better to live, how it's best to live, our approaches to being at different stages and levels, and how to, I guess, manage responsibly our respective status, our respective privileges, our respective financial capabilities or resources that we have access to. I also shared in the video of whether I can afford it or not that I recently had a little bit of a dispute with my husband about the donation that I made because I did make the mistake of not communicating that with him beforehand. And part of the reason that I did that is because I knew he would not approve or agree with it. And I really wanted to feel what it would do for my approach to money and, I guess, giving in general and the abundant mindset rather than the scarcity mindset. But I knew that that was not something that he felt we were ready to do until we have a fully funded emergency fund. While I am still interested in trying to retain an aspect of giving and would like to resume donating a portion of this channel's proceeds or revenue when it becomes something that's not threatening to compromise my relationship to do, it might just have to look a little bit different and certainly be communicated much more openly in the years that come. And, I'm not trying to say this to give you ideas about our relationship or my husband or anything like that. I am just kind of maybe confessing a little bit of my communication deficiencies and maybe giving you another window of insight into what I'm doing here with trying to reform my own habits of shopping and how communicating in general has been a little bit of that journey as well, both within my family unit, communicating shopping and purchasing, and with you on this channel, being open to receiving feedback and opinions, even if they might be contrary to my own. And again, this kind of brings up the moral dilemma of not just buying more than you need, having more than you need, indulging in more than you strictly need as a human, but then when you are a member of the middle class or higher, you may or may not technically earn more money than you actually need. And okay, maybe it's reasonable to have a 6-month emergency fund, or for some people it might be even more. But then after that, does it just become money to blow on whatever you want that you don't actually need? And you max out your retirement fund. And I guess the thing is, there's a lot of discourse about how people can't afford to actually retire and that everybody deserves to retire with dignity. And therefore, we need to be saving all of that extra money that's beyond what we strictly need. I did also say in that video of whether I can afford things or not that too much kind of fear about not having enough money doesn't sit well with me, since it kind of communicates that we can't survive with less, or that we're afraid to live like poor people do. And I just don't think that that's a positive thing to be clinging on to, both for the sake of the people that actually have to live like that day to day, do jobs that don't pay anywhere near the cost of living and have to basically give so much of their life force in the efforts of just basic human survival. But then, even the most popular financial advice is not usually in the veins of earn what you need and then give all the rest to causes that support people who don't have what they need. That's not what I would consider the prevailing message in our society. And so I do empathize with a lot of those comments that I see from people who may be in true poverty and experiencing people doing the no-buy challenge from more of a kind of insulting lens, right? This might feel like a personal insult to people who are really struggling out there. And there are the wealthy among us who are sitting here complaining about having bought too much stuff and trying to get out of the habit of continuing to buy things we don't need. And so I guess this is my open acknowledgement of all of that ickiness. And I've talked about it before and talked about how there's ickiness abounding in a lot of these topics, right? It's not comfortable territory to just be waltzing through, la la la, have an irresponsible shopping habit. And, there are multiple consequences for this, right? On not only the people and not only the feelings of other people and judgments and class discrepancies and wealth discrepancies, but on the environment, on the planet, on the resources, on our ability to sustain life in the way that we know it. The human species might be at risk for the effect on the climate of overproducing things that humans don't truly need. And so it's not even just the interpersonal dynamics that are icky about it, and the intersocietal dynamics, I guess you could say, regarding people of different levels of wealth and class and privilege, and pitting humans against humans, but it's more of a global threat, and something that's becoming perhaps more and more of concern, as it seems like there are less and less forces out there that have enough power to prevent the small actions. I was really mad about one of the news headlines I saw. I'll pop it up on screen here. I don't want to get, again, like I don't want to get political in these videos, but there are certain things that are making me mad, and I can't not talk about it with people, even if I know that it might be kind of killing the vibe. I was talking to colleagues at work about this the other day, and, you know, I don't want to be negative, but I also really don't like a lot of what I'm seeing, and some of it just feels like a slap in the face, like the article in question. And honestly, it feels like it's kind of negating all the positive work that I'm trying to do here on myself, and by cultivating this community of people that can support each other. And maybe this is where we have to rally and recommit again. You know, I've been kind of talking, February's word is this recommitment, maybe. Been talking about this kind of ad nauseum in February, but maybe this is the month for recommitment for everybody in this project of gentle resistance, of unifying, of trying to bridge the divides that might be felt between humans in circumstances like this. And again, trying to reach the people that might feel like they're being judged for having to consume differently. And that's maybe where I'm landing after all of this reflection, some of it being openly done in real time here with you. And I guess the ultimate goal here is to feel unified so that people don't feel alienated or judged or like they're being ignored or overlooked by others, you know, people like me doing challenges like this. And then there was a comment on my channel directly that kind of asked a little bit about my desire burnout. I think this might have been on that video where I said we're all kind of reaching desire burnout, where they were kind of nudging ideas out of me, saying that as an observation, you know, I'm in relative financial privilege, and so is my desire burnout a result of never being able to fulfill those desires? Since for the most part, all of my kind of practical desires are able to be fulfilled right now, right? I have enough of what I need. I have the ability to buy even more than I actually need. I have the ability to buy too many things that I just want and don't need. And so, you know, this is a super interesting question for me, because I guess desire in general is something that does unify humans. And we all desire the things we need to survive, right? And the level of difficulty that it takes to get those things will kind of shape, I guess, how our desires manifest. If we have to spend so much of our time and energy towards our basic survival, then that's going to consume most of our life and attention. And if we have those needs met, it is possible that our desire is going to be left in a place where it's maybe not fully addressed, or maybe it's still kind of operating as if we need to be having the desires of survival and accumulating wealth and resources and security. And maybe that's part of the human knee-jerk reaction. If we don't kind of confront these lingering desires and realize that by trying to fulfill them with stuff that we don't need, we're actually not addressing the root of the problem or the root of the continued desire. And comparing my own life experience from the times that I was on government assistance and the time now, you know, of being comfortably middle class, it is less stressful to be comfortably middle class. There's no denying it. And I wouldn't choose voluntarily to go back to a life of having to be on assistance and having to be more stressed about life needs, to desire more security and comfort in just putting enough food on the table, or being able to choose the quality of food that I like, or, you know, being able to get to work in a comfortable way and not having to walk for miles uphill or whatever it is in the winter, not having to worry about health insurance and all of that either. I mean, there's so much that's less stressful when you reach a point of being comfortably middle class. And that's just undeniable. And I guess, honestly, when thinking of it like that, any complaints that I might have, especially in a financial sense, are kind of, they are kind of insulting. And I can appreciate that. Like, I see these financial videos or financial creators breaking down people who just make a lot of bad decisions. And in some of those, I even feel personally insulted, right? Because some of these people have high levels of wealth or high incomes or high levels of relative privilege, and they continue to make poor decisions and end up carrying massive amounts of debt just because of acting on some kind of desire that they can't fulfill. And it almost feels like people below that level of wealth and privilege are almost being punished for not having that impulse of acting on those bad decisions sometimes. And, things like bankruptcy exist and are kind of abused sometimes, where people who just overconsume themselves into a bad situation can get out of it using that legal loophole. And again, this is maybe kind of getting away from the conversation about how people with less have to consume and more into the discussion of different levels of treating our wealth that, I guess, religious people will say that we're stewards of the wealth. And even the more indigenous mindsets will say we're caretakers for all of the resources on this earth. So I guess one could say it's the spiritual approach to not cling too tightly onto any, whether it's ephemeral wealth or material goods. And I think in some of the responding to some of these comments on my own channels, I have done some of this financial complaining, saying that while I still have desires that I know aren't actually going to be something that fulfills my inner needs if I act on them, I don't necessarily feel like we have a ton of disposable income because we have high expenses. And again, all of that's due to our own choice. And so it's not, anything that I say to justify having high expenses is just that. It's a justification. And I've come a few steps forward, perhaps, from the times that I've replied to some of those comments. If you're watching, you probably know who you are. And hopefully this is communicating a higher level of awareness or a more intentional level of thought, at least. But I think at the end of the day, the most depressing part of existing in this consumer-focused society, in this society where the levels of privilege are so vastly different, is still the same, where it's perhaps most depressing that no matter what I do in my position of privilege now, I can't directly help anybody who's perhaps below me in the standing of privilege. I can't change any of the systems. No matter if I do decide to donate more money or try to get more people to get jobs that have the same income levels. For example, my husband has actually referred many people, family members, friends, people, even neighbors who say they want to try to make more money. He's referred many people to work for the same company that he works for. And so, we try to share or try to help other people get the leg up that we luckily fell into. We were not referred into our current jobs and our current life. But no matter what we do, we cannot do anything to equalize it or to enact real change, it feels like. And, I'm trying through my small actions, through my very presence here, through continuing to evaluate and think about these things and try to engage with them critically in public for all to observe my possible stupidities. I'm trying to do what I can, but it will never feel like enough. And I will not see the world that I want to see as long as there are people who are suffering in poverty at whatever level, at, a level that makes them stressed about daily existence. That level is still not something I want other people to have to live through every day, even if they're technically able to scrape by. And it's kind of like I said in that video of you deserve it, breaking down that consumer narrative. I just don't think that anybody deserves to have a nicer life than any other person. And there's all sorts of narratives out there that you've got to work hard and you've got to earn it and that you can pull yourself up and that anybody can achieve the American dream and all that. But it does take a lot of luck and a lot of initial privilege and a lot of opportunities and a lot of, we were willing to move somewhere for our job and other people won't be, but there will be factors that made us willing to take that leap that other people have not experienced in their lives thus far. And so even on the surface, you could say that we have jobs, we work hard for money, we were willing to move to a less desirable part of the country to have the job. There are all sorts of factors that lead to being able to work hard, being able to move for a job, being able to feel secure enough to take that risk, having a stable family situation where there will be a support network in navigating this change, all these changes. And so many people just don't have that and don't have it within their control to just get that and overcome the obstacles in their lives. And so that's the most depressing thing about existing in modern consumer capitalist society. And I think perhaps the true cause of the desire burnout is just that feeling of unfulfillment, which actually stems from some of this inequality in the first place. Not to mention the narrative of companies that want to keep as many people on that hamster wheel of constant consuming as possible, so that they just believe that if they work hard enough, they'll achieve the American dream of all the stuff and security that anybody could want and deserve. Not to mention all the individual emotional messages we get through targeted ads and marketing about being happier and being more fulfilled if we just buy this singular item, and then, the waves keep on coming of new things to present in front of our eyes to make us feel like we'll be happy if we just get that next thing. The messages are constant and they're incessant and they're just not constructive in any way. And no one is safe from having sources of joy, human connection, comfort, security, a good meal, good clothes, basic clothes, No one is safe from having those needs, those things that bring true joy, corrupted into wants, into desires, into things that will bring you this if you buy this version. No one is free from having the value judgments attached to any version of these things through the marketing of the companies that want to present themselves in certain ways, to position themselves as value signifiers. And I am working on overcoming these messages for myself, for those in this community, for those close to me, but I'm just still not sure if we as a society are going to be able to escape these effects, these incessant effects, if enough people are going to be able and willing to think about these things in this way and strive for true equality, true equity, make their actions line up with their values, which is still a struggle for me, and not succumb to the divisive messages within society. Okay, anyway, with that, I think I'm going to wrap up this chat here today, and I will say bye for now, and see you in the next one.